Does your ATAR really matter? Yes, but at the same time, not really. Hey guys, I'm Lisa. So quick introduction about me. I am a VC English tutor and I have been doing so for the past 7 years, and I do it full time and have created the website vcstudyguides.com, which you may or may not know, but it works in conjunction with this YouTube channel. It's basically a free-for-all, really easy to access, beneficial and valuable advice from past students, tutors, teachers, and even examiners. Basically, what happened recently was that I published an online course called How to Achieve A+ in Language Analysis, and I released some sample videos out on YouTube just to let people know what I was covering in the course and what they could look forward to. And in response to that, I received a lot of positive feedback from people asking me if I could share more of my advice and my personal experiences in VCE. And especially since my VCE English students have just finished for the year, I found that I have heaps of time on my hand, so I thought, why the hell not? So you're going to see me doing a series of YouTube videos from here on, not just covering VC English specifically, but also just VC in general. I hope you guys find my advice helpful to you, and please subscribe if you want to learn more over the next few weeks and months as you're heading into VCE or as you are continuing VC and heading into year 12. So basically your ATAR is most important for one main reason, and that is to provide you with a direct path into the specific course you want to get into at university. So what the ATAR basically guarantees you, if you get a high enough ATAR or a number that's enough to secure a position in your course, is that direct path. But that's pretty much about it. Otherwise, everything else that comes with ATAR, the heavy burden of pressures from parents and outside family and friends or whoever, tutors even, and all of this hype about the ATAR score, ATAR, what ATAR are you going for? What ATAR do you need? Oh my god, I have to get 99 ATAR, otherwise everyone will laugh at me. That type of thing, that's just excess stuff that has sort of just been built up over the years. So that's why if you don't get the ATAR that you're after, it's absolutely not the end of the world, because once you move on from high school, there's actually so many different pathways to help you get into the specific course you want to get into if you are passionate enough. Please remember that your ATAR is not who you are. Your ATAR is not an IQ calculation, far from it actually. And just because someone gets a 99 doesn't necessarily mean that they're smarter than someone else who has received a 90 ATAR. The way that our education system is designed is so that students who tend to be more diligent in studying, students who can rote learn well, can often climb the way up to the top. Whereas students who may be a bit more practical, maybe they're not necessarily good at, writing stuff down, but they're more hands-on, they're more skill-based, or they just don't like sitting at their computer or at their table at home for hours on end studying, this type of system isn't so much suited for them. So that's why once you leave high school, just because you received an ATAR of 95 doesn't mean that you can look down on someone who got 94, okay? I can personally attest to the whole rote learning thing. I can tell you now that I absolutely suck at maths. And back in the day when I was in school, I was actually quite good at maths. But looking back, it was only really because I rote learned really well. I memorized formulas well, and I was able to apply them to some extent. But now that I've finished school, if we're splitting a bill at a dinner table, I won't be able to help you, because basic maths, I'm just horrific. When you go to uni, you might get asked what your ATAR score was in the first maybe couple of weeks, but seriously, if anybody asks you what your ATAR score is, then you can look at them like they are just how do I say this without swearing? But yeah, there's just no point of asking someone about their ATAR score, especially once you've finished VCE. Seriously, when you go to uni, you're not going to meet someone and they're not going to say, "Hi, my name is Alex and I achieved an ATAR score of 96. Nice to meet you." Seriously, if anyone does that, you are just going to roll your eyes. Like I said, if you don't get the ATAR score that you are after, it is absolutely not the end of the world. And I'm sure you've heard this many times, but you know, it's common for you to be skeptical and not necessarily believe what you're being told. But seriously, from experience, I can tell you with 100% certainty that your ATAR score does not define who you are. It may define what happens in the next few months, so whether or not you get into this course or you get into this course and whether you have to transfer, but that's all it's really going to do. I know heaps of people who haven't got into the course they wanted to originally, and all they did was did an extra year of a different course, or maybe even an extra 2 years or 3, but in the end, they still got into the course that they were after. If you are really passionate about something, you are not going to let a double-digit score define you and let it get in the way of you getting into the course that you want to, or into the career that you know you're destined for. Of course, with this in mind, you still want to do well when you're in VC, because if you've got that opportunity to just take that giant leap forward into the direct area that you want to get into, of course you wouldn't miss out on that opportunity. But having said that, please don't just make VC all about the studying and all about that double-digit score that you're going after, because VCE is your final schooling years of the rest of your life. You want to ensure that you have fun while you do this. So please make sure that you're still hanging out with friends. Please balance your study with going out, hanging out, whatever you're doing. Make sure that you keep up with some hobbies, because if you're just studying all the time, it's really not going to be beneficial for you or your body, really. So keep up any hobbies that you've got, because sometimes it's just nice to have something on the side just for an hour or two a week, just to take your mind off VC. VC will be a massive part of your life, but don't let VC dictate your life. In fact, you should dictate it. Make your ATAR score your goal. And I know that heaps of you out there might have pressure from family, you know, get this, make sure you get higher than your cousin, which was kind of me and my family, because I had heaps of pressure to beat all my other cousins, because as soon as my ATAR score came out, you know, my family would just spread word, and then all the aunties and uncles would compare and whatnot. But that's just Asian families for you, so holla if you are Asian too. Just make your ATAR score your goal. If your ATAR score becomes your goal, you become more passionate about it. You become more diligent in your studying. You know that you are doing it for yourself as opposed to doing it for anyone. And at the end of the day, if you do it for yourself and you've given it all you've got and you've achieved a particular mark, well, regardless of if it's lower than you anticipated or higher than you anticipated, which is, cross fingers, what you end up getting, at least then you've known that you've just given it your all, and that's the best that anyone could ever ask of you, right? So that's my outlook on your ATAR score and how the ATAR score affects you during VCE, but also afterwards, which, as I hope you understand by now, is, yes, it can affect it a little bit, but it's not going to run over your world, okay? So that's pretty much about it. If you like what I've talked about today, please thumbs up for me, just so that I know that what I'm doing is on the right track and that you'd like to see more of these type of videos from me. Please subscribe as well if you're after more VCE tips and advice. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!